I think I got everyone. All righty. Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Right. I am very excited today to present Tommy Mulligan. He is one of the nurse coordinators, and he's going to talk to you about kidney donation and getting ready for the call. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box or hold them to the end of his presentation for us. So I will not delay, and Tommy, turn it over to you.
All right. Morning, everybody. My name's Tommy. I'm one of the organ procurement nurses here at the Mayo. I am the senior, I guess, procurement coordinator as far as age and longevity. I've been on this side for 15 years. I was on the organ procurement side where I approached families for donation, medically managed the organ donors, and made the offers that I now evaluate for 3 years in Orlando. So 18 years in transplant, and I've watched all kinds of changes come down the pike. But some of the things that we're going to talk to today are the ones that have held true, and also incorporate some of the changes that are here. So we'll do a little bit of an overview about kidney donation. We'll talk about getting ready for the call. I won't read each slide to you because you guys can do that, and that can get boring. But I want to give an overview so that we have time for questions, because we learn the most when from each other when we're asking questions. So I'll see if, let me get over to my here. We'll click on this one. Is that working? I just wanted to give a quick check to see if the slide changed.
Yeah.
And someone,
Yes.
everyone can see? Perfect.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to talk about donation importance, facts and myths, the procedures, and what you guys can do to get ready for that call. Typically, because kidney folks are on the transplant waiting list longer than the other organs, one, because there's so many of you. 2 years, 3 years here in Florida, it can be 6, 7, 8 years in the Northeast or different parts of the country. You're expecting that call as much as somebody who's on the liver list. So you tend to forget that maybe that phone number that you don't recognize might be one of us. So if you get calls in the middle of the night, pick them up. It's not a telemarketer. Somebody's got their volume on.
Can everyone mute themselves, please?
No.
I don't see any slides, ma'am.
Are you only seeing Tommy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Then you need to change the view of you have to select the view so that you can see the slides. There's a way to highlight the presenter. There should be thumbnails at the top. There's ways to view the screen. So you can highlight the presenter, which is Tommy, or the person who's talking, which is me. And then there's a way to see the slides. Unfortunately, I'm not able, unless I see your screen, I'm not tech savvy enough to walk you through it, but you're going to have to play around with it so you can choose the way to view the screens.
And if you can't see the slides, really us talking is probably going to end it. Don't stress if you can't see the slides, because this is a lot of like data, which is really not as important as us just getting together and making sure we're all on the same page and sharing information with each other. So don't stress about that if you end up not being able to see the slides. So we'll talk a little bit about the importance of kidney donation. There's over 90,000 people on the transplant list. There's plenty of other people that, want to, could, or should be on the transplant list. 85% of the people that are on the transplant list are actually the one waiting for a kidney. And so 15% covers livers, lungs, hearts, pancreas, intestine. So kidneys are definitely the majority of what we try to transplant, given that that's the most need. So depending on who you read, 18 to 20 people actually pass away on the list waiting for an organ, because this is a supply and demand issue. There's not a lot of people that pass away in the way that they need to, I guess, for lack of a better term, for transplant to happen, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So 15% of the US has chronic kidney disease. That's over 750,000 people in the US, and a lot of those 70% of those are on dialysis and getting dialysis all the time. And dialysis does cost a lot of money, excuse me. Medicare spends about $100,000 per year for each dialysis patient. That's a lot. So it benefits, it's better for you guys. It decreases your mortality or increases your lifespan by getting a dialysis or getting a kidney besides being on dialysis. So some of the other benefits are the cost later on in life, and also your ability to return back to work. So you'll see the first little bullet point there, for those of you can see it. Individuals employed 30% before transplant to 45% of people that have chronic kidney disease after transplant. And then the cost each year for getting a kidney go down. It's easier and cheaper for us to get you a kidney and then put you on the kidney meds than it is to have you on dialysis. Plus you have a better life overall, as far as being tired, being able to work, your family, being able to go on vacations, all those different things. Transplant is really the best answer that we have. One thing I was taught years ago to remember is transplant itself is not a cure for whatever is going on. It's a trade for a more manageable disease process. Being transplanted and doing your meds and doing your follow-up is something that you guys have a lot more control over the quality of your life with. Facts and myths is what we're going to talk about next. That's the general public and even doctors in hospitals that are not familiar with transplant, or nurses in ICUs. If they haven't been exposed to transplant, even they can fall prey to some of the myths of donation, kidney donation in specific, since we're talking about that today. So a lot of people think that they have, if they have a medical illness, that they won't become an organ donor, so they think not to sign up to be a donor, or they don't talk about it with their family. So that's a case-by-case basis. If you're 80 years old, are we going to take your kidney? No, we're not. Well, we could take your liver. So as long as you haven't done too much work on it, we could do that. So if you're thinking about, even yourselves, if you have kidney disease and you're on the transplant list, it doesn't mean that you couldn't be a donor either, because one of your other organs might be suitable, and it could be better than the person that's on the transplant list. That's what we have to remember too. If you're on the transplant list, you need that organ desperately. And the person who maybe has some medical comorbidities can still have a better organ than you, and you can get a nice length of life and quality of life out of that organ that they may donate. Some other facts and myths is, if I'm in an accident and the hospital knows that I'm designated as a donor, they won't try to save my life. So as part of the process of organ donation, if you're going to be a donor, and this is one of the reasons why we have a supply and demand issue, you have to make it to the ER, then you have to make it to the ICU, because we need your heart beating, we need blood pumping, we need oxygen getting to your organs and your tissues. So if you die at the scene of an accident, or if you die at home and they're not able to get your heart to start back up, you're not going to be an organ donor, because those organs have now also are also dying or have died because they haven't got blood and oxygen. So every time you go into the ER, into the ICU, they're going to try to save you, regardless of whether you're a donor, because what's good for trying to save you is also good for those organs. Part of the process is going through to make sure that there's not, a drug overdose, that they can't give an antidote. And organ donation takes hours to days. We have to send off for all types of blood tests for hepatitis, for HIV. Those take 4 to 6 hours. Then you have to make the offers. Everybody has to evaluate them. They all have to agree on a date and time to show up at that donor hospital. So you could go into the ER at 6 o'clock on a Monday morning, and we don't go and recover your organs until maybe Wednesday evening, and that's 48 hours later. So it's not going to happen right away. And if they do all these efforts to try to save you, if you can be saved, great. And if you can't, then at least we've set the donor's organs to be of good use to potential recipients. So another myth is people will be charged for donating organs. That's not true. Once a potential donor family is approached by a procurement coordinator, once they give consent, the organ procurement organization that's in that area, they take over the hospital costs from that moment on. Everything that happened before that is the responsibility of the family. But once they sign consent, then they take over all those costs as far as the ICU stay, things like that. We don't take over the costs before consent, because that could be construed as unethical or, I guess, bribing the people to donate the organ. This is an altruistic endeavor. There's no financial benefit for donating your loved one's organs. Some other facts and myths: you're too old. We mentioned this a little bit. Liver, you can donate into your 80s. Kidneys, our cutoff is pretty much about 70. Hearts, 50s. Lungs, maybe in your 60s. Pancreas is and the intestine are the youngest. Most people, we usually won't take a pancreas if the person's over 45, and we don't do intestine. The only place in Florida that does intestine is Miami. That's definitely something you want to receive if the donor is much younger. Another myth is people say, if I donate my organs, I won't be able to donate my body to science for research. You can donate your body after organ donation. One thing to note, it has to be arranged well before death. That's a process. It has its own hurdles and paperwork, and that can't happen once you've already been declared or once you're in the ICU setting. There's not enough time to donate your body to science then. Sometimes people want to do that because maybe they don't have enough money for the funeral. So they think if they donate to science, that'll save them that. And it will, but it has to be done well beforehand. Organ donation is against my religion. Another myth. Most major religions do support organ donation. There are a couple of very I don't know if the word is devout or very particular belief systems that will have in their wording that they don't, but most of them do. To save a life is to save the world. You'll see that in the Talmud, the Quran. Most people feel if you can do that, if you can help somebody, then that's going to help you go on to the next life. Let's see what else. An open casket funeral is an option for people who donate organs. That's also not true. Without being like too graphic or whatever the case may be, if you do go to a funeral home, they are going to remove your organs anyway. Some of them, especially your stomach, your intestine, things like that, because you're not going to have an open casket. Those organs, once somebody passes away, they will bloat, they will be gassed, there's still bacteria in there. So all that stuff's going to be removed no matter what. So to think that you're not going to be cut on is another myth to let go of. So let's talk a little bit about the process of kidney donation. I love this little quote. The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. That's a Walt Disney quote. And this is the part of the doing. So the waiting list, the waiting list, this I did about 6 months ago, I think. So there's probably more. There's probably close to 110,000 people on the waiting list. Definitely over 90,000 are waiting for a kidney. Typically, the kidney is going to go to somebody that's close, and this is with all organs. You want to look for the sickest and the closest recipient to the organ donor themselves. Exceptions would be if we have an organ offer, which is called a zero mismatch, which is something that happens a couple of times a year where the donor and the recipient are such a good match that the chances of you actually rejecting that organ are close to zero. That's why we call it a zero mismatch. But most of the time, we're going to get kidneys, from somewhere in the Southeast region. Doesn't always work out that way, but that's typically. How does the waiting list work? Well, every time there's a deceased donor somewhere in an ICU in a hospital across the country, there's an ICU nurse that's going to call the local organ procurement organization, and they're going to potentially rule out that person or rule in that potential donor. Then they're going to upload all their information to this governing body, this database. And once all that information is in there, then they're going to start making offers. My job is to get that offer, be the initial evaluator. Once that evaluation is done, I present that to the surgeons, and then in your case, it'll be the surgeon and the nephrologist. Both of them have to agree that this is potentially a good kidney for you. And then once that happens, then I'll make arrangements to either go get it or to have it sent to us. And then we'll give you a call, and we'll talk about when you need to come in and those types of things. And we'll talk about that a little bit farther down. Let's see. So how does the matching work? Typically, are we going to give an 18-year-old kidney to a 72-year-old recipient? Probably not. And are we going to give a 72-year-old donor to an 18-year-old recipient? No, we're not. We're trying to do, the best match possible. That's not always the case. You might be somebody, let's say you donated a kidney in the past, or let's say you maybe got a heart transplant and now you need a kidney, or you're one of those zero mismatch people, you tend to go to the top of the list. So somebody who is older might get that 18-year-old kidney, and that's just kind of a luck of the draw thing, but that's not typically how we want it to set up. We're trying to maximize benefit. If that 18-year-old donor, you're looking to put that into a 20, 30, 40-year-old because that kidney is going to last a long time. We don't want to waste the years on a kidney. And that waste maybe not be the best word. If somebody's 74 and the kidney could last 30 years, they're not going to probably live to 104. So it's better to get them a kidney that matches them a little bit better. One of the other things that we look at is KDPI. This is relatively new over the last couple of years. This measures kidney function, and it basically rates that kidney according to other kidneys that were being offered in that same year. So a 0 KDPI is a 12-year-old car accident that's never had hypertension or diabetes. 100 KDPI would be maybe somebody who's 69, 70 years old, maybe had some hypertension and diabetes, and that they had a stroke. It doesn't mean that kidney's not going to work, but in general, KDPI is over 85. The average life expectancy of that kidney is probably going to be around 6 years. Anything under 85 is going to be more in the 10 to 12. And that's an average. So that average is affected by how well the person who receives that kidney takes care of it. So just because you get a kidney that's got maybe a higher KDPI doesn't mean it's not going to last 10 or 12 or 14 years. If the person takes their meds, eats correctly, exercises, does those things, that's just the average. See a little bit more. The computer figures that KDPI depending on the person's age, how they died, their lab values, whether or not they're hepatitis C positive, things like that. The advantage of taking a kidney with a higher KDPI, and this is something that should be considered by people that are maybe a little bit older, that maybe are what we call sensitive, where they have a higher chance of rejecting a kidney compared to other people. I'm not sure if that's in the slide coming up, but that's CPRA. We'll talk about that a little bit at the end if I don't have a slide. So if you're a little older, people that are in their 20s or 30s are probably not going to sign up for a higher KDPI kidney. They'll wait, and they have the ability to wait. They're younger, and they're looking for quote unquote that better kidney. But if you're a little older and you want to get it off dialysis and have an increased quality of life, considering a KDPI kidney that's a little bit higher definitely makes more sense. You'll get transplanted a lot quicker. Talked a little bit about that. I'm not going to read that to you. All right, so we talked a little bit about how long do people usually wait. 3 to 5 years is kind of a average across the country. Depending on where you live, that can change. Willingness to accept Hep C organs or higher KDPI, we talked a little bit about that. That can decrease your wait time. We have plenty of people that live in New York, Maine, New Jersey, Maryland that are actually on our transplant list. Sometimes they're on another transplant centers list as well, because they realize in their area, they may have to wait 6, 7, 8 years, like I mentioned, but down here in Florida, they would only have to maybe wait 2 to 3 years. So they'll get on a commercial plane, fly down, get their kidney, stay here for a couple of days, and maybe they'll do the follow-up with their nephrologist somewhere up in the Northeast, because they realize that that will decrease their wait time. We talked a little bit about where kidneys go and as far as closest and sickest. So this was over the 18 years that I've been here, I've watched the allocation process change. Every couple of years, they evaluate the fairness of the model, and they get input from procurement coordinators, doctors, transplant surgeons, and then the general public and recipients alike. And they try to change the policy to improve the use and the distribution of organs. And that's just not for kidney, that happens for every organ. They try to do that. So each year or each couple of years, they'll make a small change to make sure that we're honoring the gift of the organ donation families. So now, since those efforts, we did 25, or over the, not just Mayo, but 25,000 kidney transplants in 2022. And that's the most that we've ever done. The number of donors has gone up a decent amount, but the number of organs has definitely gone up. And a lot of that is due to different medications that we're able to do. Like for people that are willing to take a Hep C kidney, we'll proactively treat you for that. So the chances of you getting Hep C in the future are super slim. We have different devices that you can put an organ on, whether they're a kidney pump or specialized coolers to move organs in, that you can put them in the cooler longer than you could before. So maybe you do get a kidney that's all the way from Washington State that we were able to use because of the new technologies that are out there. So out of those 70 daily kidney transplants, we've been increasing slowly but surely the kidneys that are used by deceased donors. Living donors, which is something that has been progressively increasing over the last decade or so, is something that's wonderful. People will do it for their loved ones, or they'll do it altruistically, maybe for somebody in their church, maybe or they don't even know the recipient. And then also we have kidney paired donations, where maybe I'm not a match for my mom, but I'm willing to put in a kidney, and somebody else has a loved one that they're willing to put in a kidney. We'll find pairs that will work, and then we'll create a process where we might pull a kidney here in Mayo Jacksonville, and somebody in Arizona will pull a kidney kind of at the same time, and then we'll put them on planes and we'll send them to each other, because we found that those were the match. And that's a great way to get off the waiting list earlier. As far as on your side, what can you all do to be ready if we've gone through this whole process and we've got an organ offer for you? What can you do to make it so that it's going to be a smooth transition, so that you folks are ready for the transplant? Well, the biggest thing is stay healthy. Go to your visits. Don't miss any. If you're on dialysis, don't miss your dialysis. We don't want your body to be not really prepared for the transplant. You know, as much as you can. Whatever the exercise regimen is that you're told, your diet, your medicine. There's a little spot on here for people who can't see, your water and salt intake. Make sure that you're really on top of your care so that you're ready. You're not going to go and run a half marathon if you don't practice some running. So this is kind of your this is you jogging for your transplant. Some other things, let you know if you have any changes in your health, even if you feel like you just have a cold. If you're under the weather, it may not be a good idea for you to get a transplant. If you have the flu, if you have a bad cold, or maybe if you have COVID symptoms, because we're going to put you on anti-immune, anti-rejection drugs, and that's going to weaken your immune system. So we want to make sure that you're in the best shape possible. Something that I wanted to mention that's not in the slides for those that you can see them. This happened twice last year, And it's interesting that out of 15 years, I've never seen this, but it happened twice last year where folks came in and we realized that they had changed their insurance and their insurance no longer, or Mayo doesn't take that insurance. So if you change your insurance, you must call us and let us know so we can evaluate that insurance to make sure we can get you a transplant. The worst thing to do is come in, find out that we don't take your insurance now because it's changed, and you either get sent home, or if it happens to slip through the cracks and you get transplanted, and your insurance won't pay for it, now you're stuck with a ridiculous hundreds of $1,000s bill. So make sure that you guys are, any changes, whether that's phone number, whether that's your caregiver, any changes, being current is the best way to make sure that you get the organ that we are able to get for you. So other things, some other tips and tricks: keep your medical papers in a folder or binder, be very organized. We mentioned that any changes with your address or phone number. When you go to bed, keep your ringer on. Do not put your phone on silent. Do not lower the volume. Like I said, telemarketers are not calling you after 10 o'clock at night. If you're getting a phone call after 10 o'clock at night, it's it's an emergency, or it's one of us. And make sure you have backup contacts. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to call. I wasn't able to get to somebody until it was the fourth or fifth person that I've called. Because somebody's sleeping, their wife is sleeping, they turn off their phone. I've had to find family members to go drive over to the house and knock on the door. And that only happens if they're close, because we have basically, once we're primary on a kidney offer, we have about 30 minutes to evaluate, call you, and give that offering person an answer. So if I can't get a hold of you, you're going to get skipped. And that's the worst feeling in the world, is to wake up, find that you have a voicemail from one of us about an organ that you could have had last night, and you're going to beat yourselves up. So please, please, please have your phones ready, have multiple people with contacts with phone numbers as backups, have a plan. Let's see. We talked about, okay, this slide for people that can see it. Answer all calls at all hours, especially with a 904 exchange. There are 10 of us now, procurement coordinators. We're all given a phone by the Mayo, so it's going to have a 904 exchange. So you see any phone number from 904, whether it's 6 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock at night, please answer it. Let's see. Ringer, I like that. Ringer, vibrate, always on, even in church. Winky face, because we need to get you, and we need to potentially get you in. Be ready to go, have packed bags, have pre-made plans for kids and pets, cars. If your car is in the shop, that's of course when we're going to call you, right? So have a backup plan. Make sure your caregiver is ready to go as well. They need to, sometimes the caregiver is not somebody who lives in your house, they may even live in another state, and they need to be able to get on a plane or drive and get to the hospital, because we need them to be there once you're transplanted. Let us know about infections, fevers, COVID symptoms, anything like that. We'll ask you all these questions when we give you a call, but we want to make sure that you guys are ready for that. I personally work a lot of nights, and if I think that a kidney's coming to you, I will actually call you ahead of time, like try to call you before 9 or 10 at night and put you on standby or backup and let you know that there's a kidney that may come to you. Please be ready. I find that it works better for me to give you a heads up, if at all possible, versus waking you up at 3 o'clock in the morning from a dead sleep and trying to answer all these questions. And you're still like kind of in shock that now all of a sudden we're hitting the ground running. And that's okay. We'll give you time to absorb the fact that we just called you and your life is really about to change. Let's see. Maybe I'll just read this little summary here. Kidney donation and transplant has come a long way. It's truly a team effort between hospital staff, the potential recipients, and your procurement team. Many improvements have been made to increase the amount of transplants, but we're still limited by how many donors there are. Efficiency and being proactive helps ensure a greater chance of a transplant success. Being ready is key. And it really is my honor to help care for you. My favorite thing in this job, I work remote. I'm so fortunate I get to work from home. I have 3 monitors here because it is really, I'm really an organ traffic controller as a certain degree. I love calling you, and I love calling and waking you up, especially when you answer the phone. I hate calling you and not being able to get you. It hurts my heart to not be able to get you. So please have your phone ready and on, and because you never know when that's going to come. Let's see, anything else? No, let's talk. I like talking better than reading off these slides. So let me see. Can I hit stop share so that I can see? We don't need that anymore. All right, now I can see myself talking. So I think there's 11. I see something in the chat. Oh, those are just the
Those are just the can't see, can't hear. Darlene, I sent her a message that we'll send her a copy of the presentation. She's hearing
yeah,
impaired.
so down below, right, is reactions, and then you can hit, if you hit reactions, got like a little smiley face. Do you tell them usually, like, to raise their hand, or?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, okay.
There you go. All right. Anyone with any questions for Tommy?
There's no silly questions. Go for it.
Exactly. You can unmute yourself and fire away. Or if you're not comfortable, you can put your message in the chat and I'll read it for you.
Yeah, right on. Somebody's got to ask some questions.
I have one.
Go ahead.
So I'm on the list for a KP.
Okay.
How long is that wait?
KPs are harder to come by. Pancreases just in general are harder to come by. It's hard to give you an exact time. The list is very dynamic, right? So when we put the donor's information and they'd send away all these blood tests, you may show up at number 3 on one offer, and then a month later you may show up as number 8, depending on who's been added to the list in that couple of month period. Or you may not show up on that KP offer at all because you and the donor are not a match. So it's hard to give you a time. And the reason why pancreases are hard to come by per se is that most donors are somebody that that wasn't at home on hospice, that didn't have, they didn't have cancer, or they didn't have HIV, or they weren't, died maybe in a senior living facility. And if you saw earlier, I don't know if you were able to see the slides, pretty much our max for a pancreas is 45 years old. So most donors are somebody that was an accident. It was a head trauma. It was suicide, maybe a hanging, a gunshot, a stroke. They're something that happened that was unexpected. And most of those traumas need fluids to resuscitate them, to get their stuff going. The pancreas can be kind of a little bit of a sponge. So during that resuscitation, to get them normalized, to try to help save their life, like we talked about before, they get a lot of fluids, and the pancreas can become very spongy-like, kind of edematous, and it won't work well if we put it in. When I first started, we would go and procure pancreases or kidney pancreases ourselves. But after a number of years of flying out, trying to recover, and then only coming back with half or maybe even less than half of pancreases after we saw them in the donor's body, now we don't fly. We allow other transplant surgeons that are there maybe for the kidneys or maybe there for the liver to pull the pancreas for us. They send us videos in the OR. They send us pictures. The surgeons talk to each other about what they think the pancreas is, because it was just really labor intensive and costly to try to go and recover the pancreas ourselves. So pancreases are really, really hard. I've seen a lot of people have had 4 or 5 what we call dry runs, where we've allowed somebody to go pull a pancreas for us, and it just didn't work out. It just didn't look good, or it was fatty. It just tends to be an organ that we in general, particularly as Americans, we're not the best at eating. We're not the best at exercising. The pancreas can only work so long, so hard before it starts to give out themselves. So you may have some dry runs in order to get your KP. It's hard to give you an exact time on that. There's so many factors and nuances in there. I'm sorry that that doesn't give you, kind of a clear thing, but the same rules do apply. Keep yourself in the best shape you can. Have a bag ready, have the phone ready. Knowing that you may have a couple of dry runs, hopefully eases the fact when they happen. But that is something to potentially be prepared for, given the pancreas's unique situation. And it's the only it's the only organ that they have not come up with a device, right? So they don't have a specialized cooler or a machine that they can put them on that maybe drains the fluid from the pancreas. So even if it was spongy, that we can fix it. And I don't know of anybody that's working on a device to do that, but that would be something that if somebody created that, we could tackle more kidney pancreases or pancreas lung transplants. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Let me read you a few, Tommy. I have some in
Sure.
the chat. How do you know when your name is coming up?
So again, like I said, the list is dynamic, and there's multiple blood types. And then there's also what they call HLA, if you guys are familiar with that. The kidneys are an organ that are, out of all the organs, they're the most likely to reject. They have particular antibodies that are formed when the kidney is put in, and then they release the blood flow. The body recognizes that kidney as foreign immediately, and it sends that kind of signal to the liver to say this is foreign. So the body does three things when it sees it like a foreign invader. It attacks, it encapsulates, or it tries to remove. So in that case, it would be kind of attacking the kidney. So every donor is going to have a different HLA as well as their blood type. So you may see we may see like on our side, you've been in the top 10 or top 20 over the last couple of weeks. So chances are you're going to get that call soon. But then it could be you've been in the top 20 for the last couple of weeks, but then we don't see an offer for you for a month or two because that donor doesn't match you. So it's really hard to say, how do you know? If you've been on the list longer and if you've been in dialysis for a while, you have a higher score, you tend to move up. But that at any given time, you can have what we called one of those zero mismatch offers. So you could be listed on a Friday. I might call you on a Saturday. Your coordinator might tell you, hey, the average wait time is 2 to 3 years. And you're thinking, okay, I've got 2 to 3 years, but I might call you 24 hours later just because the stars lined up and that donor happened to be the best match for you the next day. So soon as you go on the transplant list, be ready. I can't even imagine what it would be like to be, to go on the transplant list thinking you're going to have to wait 2 or 3 years and then get a call, within a day or a week or a month. People are like, whoa, I didn't think it was going to happen this fast. I'm not ready. So when we list you, be ready at that time. I'm sure that it absolutely stinks to have to wait years in that ready mode, which is why a lot of times people don't think about answering their phone at night because they don't think it's us calling them. You go by your normal routine and you don't think it's going to be us, but it could be. It really is hard to give you a definitive answer, like I said, because of all those changing data points that could put you at the bottom of one list, the top of another list, or maybe you don't even show up on one. There's trends, but there's really not a way to tell you, hey, we think it's going to happen in the next week or so.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
All right. The next question is a Medicare question. It's a very general question, so I'm going to suggest, Shannon, for you to contact the social work team. So because it's patient specific for the Medicare and when to contact Medicare. You can give us a call at 904-956-3292 so that we can review Medicare protocol with you. The next question for you, Tommy, is what information can I ask about the donated kidney?
Sure. So you can ask me what the KDPI is. That kind of gives you an idea. So a KDPI of 50 would be a good kidney, an average kidney compared to all the other kidneys that were transplanted in the year before. A KDPI kidney of 6 is a great kidney. A KDPI kidney of 90, and you're not going to get the KDPI kidney offer of 90 unless you've signed up for KDPI kidneys over 85. We have a separate process for that. Those are people that realize, I don't want to wait as long. I'll take a kidney that'll get me off of dialysis for 6 to whatever potential years because I don't want to wait. Again, doesn't mean that it's not going to function for longer. That's the average. What I'm not allowed to tell you is the age, ethnicity, where they're from. Especially with today's technology, just those couple of data points, people will go and search obituaries. They'll try to find their donor or try to find their donor family. It's happened. I've witnessed it. I've had people that have go, oh, I think I found my donor family. I saw that. I'm like, whoa. There's please don't do that, and please don't contact them. That we have a process in place for that. Some people do not want to be contacted. We will, if the donor has, you won't even have to ask. Things that we'll tell you without you having to ask are whether or not the donor is hepatitis C positive, whether or not the donor is high risk, and they can be high risk for a multitude of things. They can be high risk for IV drug use, for prostitution, for being a homosexual male, of course, the risk of HIVs, whether or not they were in jail for more than like 24 hours in the last year or so. Please, if I can say one, please don't be afraid of high-risk donors, because we're just telling you they're high risk, but we've already tested them, right? So you could be hepatitis C positive donor and not be high risk because your IV drug use was 10 years ago. So you're not considered high risk because it wasn't recent. And you could be a high risk donor, but not be hepatitis C positive. The other factor, because I was on the side where I would approach families for organ donation, sit in the room with the family and talk to them about everything, their sex life, their drug life, their whole history, because we're trying to get a good picture to give you guys what we call informed consent. I've been there where I'd ask a question about sex life or drugs, and the mom would be, oh, no, definitely not. And I'll see the brother and sister like roll their eyes. And of course, I'm not going to say anything in front of the mom. So I will wait till that is over and I'll say, hey, do you have a second? And I will ask them, separately. Nobody knows what their loved ones do in their free time. So as far as I'm concerned, everyone's high risk. And that's just my own personal opinion for doing this for 18 years. We don't know what people do in their free time. And when I do know that the person's high risk, I look at that as great. I know. That means they had a close connection with their family. We were able to delineate they were high risk. So, and then we can tell you why they were high risk, whether it was the jail time or whether it was the IV drug use. The testing that we use is super, super sensitive. So even if they are high risk, we'll know whether or not they're positive for any of those particular disease processes.
How do you get on that list?
For what?
Your high risk, your nurse coordinator. They
Okay,
usually,
great.
yeah.
So there
Go
is
ahead, Tom.
there is no high risk list.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's that's something that when we list you folks for your organ, we'll say, will they take a hepatitis C or not? Will they take a hepatitis B or not? Will they take what we call a DCD, and we can talk about that too, or not? There is no checkbox of like, will they take a high risk or not?
Exactly.
Okay, I
Comes
didn't
in
know-
and we just-
yeah,
what's
I
that?
did something I needed to do to make sure that I made myself available if that was an option.
No, your nurse coordinator usually reviews and asks if you'll take a high KPDI, if you'll take Hep C. They ask you these questions during the evaluation, and once you're approved.
It's been
So
a while.
it's
since I went
listed.
through.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the surgeons do too.
Okay.
They always ask.
Usually a coordinator, sometimes your nephrologist, the surgeons do, so that everybody is matching up, and then you'll be listed for those particular organs. So in the future, high risk is going to be a moot point.
Mhm.
I think there's talks about them just removing the high risk language altogether,
Oh, wow.
just because of what I said, because
Yeah,
everybody's high risk, because
yeah.
nobody does know what their loved ones do in their free time. That if we don't know what our loved ones do, then why are we even talking about high risk?
True.
What's higher risk, or well, let's look at it this way. What's low risk? Getting the kidney transplant is more important, right? Than whether or not that donor was potentially high risk, because we've tested them for all the potential transferable diseases. And some of those are manageable. Hep C in particular. When I first started, hepatitis C organs were liver recipients only. And you had to have a certain genotype. Your genotype had to match the donor's genotype. Now it doesn't matter whether your heart, lung, kidneys, because these different antiviral meds that we have are eradicating hep C, and we can proactively treat you for hep C. If we know the donor's positive, we can treat you before we even put the kidney in to make sure that you're not going to get hep C in the future. So now everybody can take a hep C organ. And if it was, again, personal opinion, if it was my mom and she needed a transplant, I'd say, yeah, mom, take the hep C organ, especially if you're older. Or if you think about it this way, is there an IV drug overdose epidemic in the US? Yes, there is. A lot of heroin overdoses. Are those people going to potentially have hep C? They sure are. But typically overdoses are also young. Those are good functioning kidneys. So, everybody's, of course, we're trying to stop the overdoses, but on the other side of the coin is those overdoses are giving us more younger kidneys into the system. So it's a balance there.
The next question is, can we access the list?
No.
No.
And the list is, like I said, each list. So you're on the list. There's 110,000 people that are also on the list. 90 something thousand of them there are kidneys, but that list is ever flowing, ever changing, ever dynamic, like I mentioned. So they call it a match run. They put all the donor information into the system, and then they create a match run that is going to be different each time based upon that donor. And then they send that offer to us. So we might be sequences 3 and 5 on one. We might be sequences 300 and 500 on a different offer. So there is no real list to access. It's kind of in the cloud, for lack of a better explanation on that one.
Okay.
Can I get-
Tommy, are you willing to share
Yeah.
the slides for the people who could not see them today?
Of course, yeah, you can send it to
Okay.
them. Feel
All
free.
right. Not a problem. If you put your email in the chat, if you would like the copy of the slides, I'll send them to you. I have a caregiver asking, she's diabetic. Is she allowed to donate?
Probably not.
All right. Another donor question.
Can I add to that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, they're never going to put your potential living donor at risk, right? So if you're a diabetic or have hypertension or whatever the case may be, you're already at risk for developing kidney disease. So we're not going to take one of those kidneys out. If you want to have the best medical workup of your life, sign up to donate a kidney because they will look at everything. There are plenty of people that have signed up to be a living donor that found out things about themselves that they didn't know they had, whether it was be like a horseshoe, maybe they were missing a kidney they never even knew. Maybe they have what's called a horseshoe kidney. And that process or any other thing that could potentially be a negative health data point, they'll find out. But to start off with already having something that's going to potentially give you kidney disease, they wouldn't utilize that person.
Okay. The next one is, I've had 3 donors. One needed to lose 7 pounds. One never received a call back. One person is waiting to see if she's a match. So are they notified if they qualify, and why don't we? Do you want me to answer that, Tommy, or
Why don't we what? I'm not sure.
why isn't the recipient notified when a living donor is not qualified, or if they are qualified?
Oh, that's a good question. That's not in my wheelhouse.
Okay. So, it's not really in mine as well, but I will say that there are strict regulations to make sure the donor and the recipient process is kept completely separate to make sure there's no coercion, or any type of exchange for the transplant. They are absolutely notified if they are a match or not. It does not go they have a whole team. Just like Tommy said, you want the best workup, go through a living donor evaluation. They have a entire team just like you do who keeps in contact with them and lets them know where they are in the process. So that will be up to your donor what they are able and willing to share with you regarding their evaluation process. But that is kept completely separate.
Oh,
All right.
now I see. I get to learn
Yeah.
something. Right on.
Yeah. I heard that if you are 70, that you are not eligible for a kidney transplant.
That could be transplant center specific.
Okay.
I have called plenty of people in for a kidney transplant over the last 15 years that are over 70, and some of them well over 70.
All right.
So that is, yeah, there could be a transplant center that maybe that's their particular cutoff. And to me, that's a little bit of cherry picking, if you understand what I mean by that. So if you don't transplant people over 70, then your outcomes or how long a kidney lasts, wouldn't they look better? Right? So that could be the transplant center being specific. That's like a district attorney only, oh, I have a 95% success rate of, putting people in jail. I said, well, that's because you picked cases you knew you could win. So that could be something with that transplant center as well. And since we're speaking about other transplant centers, something I didn't mention, and I didn't see the question here, can I be listed at multiple transplant centers? The answer is yes. You can be listed at multiple transplant centers. You just need to meet the criteria for each individual transplant center. And you need to go through their individual processes, and you need to be able to get to them, whether it's commercial flight or driving or whatever the case may be, in the time that they need you to get there.
Okay. Next question. I had a heart transplant 9 years ago. How does that affect my listing?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I would definitely talk to your pre-kidney coordinator. And this is something that I found to be relatively new. I don't know a ton about it, but if you are a previous organ recipient, I think they call it a safety net kidney. If you've received an organ, and because sometimes when you receive an organ and you're on these anti-rejection drugs, it can be nephrotoxic. It can really beat up your kidneys. So later on down the road, you need a kidney now too. Or it could be, for another reason, but I've seen that in the past. But this safety net kidney, if you've already gotten an organ before, I think that does help you to a certain extent move up the list. We would be very particular about that kidney. We would want to make sure that it was a really good kidney for you. But that's something to talk to your coordinator about and hopefully they're already talking to you potentially about that.
All right.
And I know a little bit about it, but only on the receiving the offer side, not so much with the transplant recipient side.
Okay. Next question. They want to know, when you call, do you leave a message or you just hang up when the voicemail comes on and call the next recipient?
No, I call, I leave a message. Me personally, I send a text. And then I call the next person and I send them a text. And then I call the next person and then I send them a text. And I say, this is Tommy from the Mayo Clinic. I'm calling about a kidney. Please call me back immediately at this number. I will work my butt off to try to get you in the time that I have. But if I can't get you, I can't get you. Now, sometimes we have time. Sometimes, we're not going to the donor OR until noon. And it's 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm trying to get you to tell you to come in. So in this particular field, there's a lot of relationship building because it's a small niche community. So I may know that procurement coordinator that's offering me the kidney, say, hey, I'm having trouble getting my recipient. They're like, oh, that's okay. Take your time because we're not going to the OR until later today. Okay. But if the kidney is already out of the body, we don't have that luxury. In the past, there were less kidney combos, okay, where I would know if I was primary for a kidney before they went to the OR more often than I do now. Because those kidneys, because maybe somebody needs a second liver and now they need a liver kidney because their kidney was damaged from the meds. We're seeing a lot more heart kidney combos, liver kidney combos, lung kidney combos even. So we don't know if we're primary because that kidney is slotted to go with the heart or with the liver. And let's say they go in to recover liver kidney or heart kidney and the liver or the heart's not good. That means the kidney is now free, right? It's now no longer attached to the heart. They can't place that liver. They can't place that heart. The kidney is now primary to us. But we didn't know that until the OR's already done, because they didn't know that they didn't want that liver because it was too fatty or the heart didn't have good function until they actually saw it in the recovery OR. So, or more often than not, these days, when I'm calling you, the kidney may already be out. And that's why I need you to answer the phone. That's why they need a decision, because if they can't use it, I need to know if I need them to ship it to us or not. And kidneys can come via car or they can come via commercial flight. So if you ever want to get someplace fast, be on a commercial flight that's got a kidney going somewhere, because they get primary takeoff and landing to try to get the kidney here closer. So it's hard. That's why I'm trying to be really, without being too anal, like, please answer your phone and please have backup contacts. It doesn't have to necessarily be your caregiver. If you're friends with your neighbor, and they're willing to take a call at 3 o'clock in the morning, put them on your contact list. Put neighbor, because if I can wake that neighbor up, I will wake them up and have them come bang on your door.
All right. When on the list for dual transplants, such as kidney pancreas, does the wait list decrease as to availability?
I'm not exactly sure how to answer that. Does the wait list decrease?
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, can you give me more on that, Kev? What do you mean by decrease?
Are you asking if the wait list time decreases? Is Kevin still with us? Guess not. Maybe he'll put something else in the chat.
We talked a little bit about the kidney pancreas earlier.
Yeah.
Again, that it's hard to tell you because the list, like I said, is dynamic. If somebody goes on the list that maybe has had more dialysis time than you, then are they going to be maybe a little bit higher? They might be because of their score. Everybody is ranked based upon certain criteria as far as where they show up on the list. And then, of course, you have the donor. Has to be a matched blood type wise, HLA wise. So it's hard to say where you are. You might be 3 on one list, 7 on one list, and 87 on another list, depending on where the organ is coming from.
Okay. The next question is what to bring to the hospital when called?
So definitely bring clean underwear, like your mom told you, socks, a tablet, a book, your regular meds that you normally take, any insurance paperwork. We talked a little bit in the beginning of the slides about like a folder. Be real organized. Have all your stuff there. Your caregiver, bring them. Or if you live separately, then have them, meet you there. When you do come, we're always going to send you to the ER. Transplants happen 24/7, and the regular check-in areas may not be open at 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever. So it doesn't matter whether you're a kidney, liver, lung, heart recipient. You come in through the ER. There's an automatic process. They'll send you for a chest X-ray to make sure you don't have pneumonia. They'll send you up to a room. We'll steal some of your blood to do what we call a cross match with the donor's blood. And then we let the nurses on the floor know when we think, a guesstimate about when we think we're going to take you to the OR based upon all the eval we need to do before you go. Sometimes you might get a call, could be 9 o'clock at night, and maybe there was a problem with the recipient before you. And you live an hour or two away, you get there at 11, you might be going to the OR 3 hours later. Especially if you have what they call, oh, we didn't talk about PRA, a low PRA, which stands for panel reactive antigen. That's the rating on how likely are you to reject kidney offers that are out there. So if you have a low PRA, we can do what's called a virtual, where we actually have a computer model algorithm that will take the tissue typing from the donor and yours and give us a percentage of how likely are you to reject that kidney. So we can go to the OR fast these days. We weren't able to do that years ago. We had to do a traditional cross match, and we had to wait 4 to 6 hours for that to come back and to put the kidney in. But now with the virtual stuff, you could get there, get your workup done, 2 or 3 hours later, you're in the OR.
Okay, thank you. All right. Also, when you met with social work for your appointment, we provide a handy packing list with all of the things that you should bring in with you, especially for those of you who are relocating for the recovery period for the transplant. So, all right, I'm O negative. I understand that makes my wait list time longer in any region. I'm currently almost 5 years wait time. How do I know how close I am to receiving an offer on Mayo's list?
Again, hard question to answer. There's so many factors. If you've been waiting for 5 years, chances are that you're moving up on this dynamic list in the cloud. Also, one of the things, if you've been transplanted twice before, we are going to be ultra picky on your third one. If that makes sense, I'm not sure. I think I don't know if you can have more than 3.
No, that's a different person. That's a different question. I asked the O negative. I think someone else said they were transplanted twice.
Okay. As far as if you're on your 3rd transplant, we're hoping that that's the last one, right? So we're going to be picky. If it's an older donor, maybe the creatinine's not normal, they have hypertension, diabetes, we're probably not going to take that for you. So you may be on the list, but we may be super picky for you. You may show up, but we're going to say that you're inappropriate for that donor. We only want to, we're trying to balance the quality of the kidney and the quality of your life, your age, how many transplants you have. It's really hard with all those different data points to give you a definitive answer on that as far as estimated time.
Okay.
Just know that we are always working diligently to get as many people transplanted as possible, while also being aggressive, assertive, but not too crazy where we're just taking anything. We don't want to just take anything. We want to take something that's actually going to be of benefit for you.
I think you were answering 2 questions at the same time.
Well, the O negative one, again, it really does, the answer kind of, they parallel. There's really no way to tell. Was the O negative question about how long you'd have to wait?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm multi-listed, but I know in California, of course, every region is different. I'm like 8 to 10 years for O
Right.
negative, but I know the wait time in Florida and other regions are much shorter. So I know I'm getting closer on you guys' list. I was just curious as to how close.
So I hate to keep defaulting to that same answer, but it really does hold true. There's not a way for me to go and like do research and see where you are, because every donor and their HLA is different. And then in the meantime, some people have been removed because they've been transplanted, or unfortunately, maybe they passed away. And then other people who have had longer dialysis times and all the factors that go into a score may have been added. So you could move up because other people were transplanted, but you could move back down because other people were listed that have been waiting longer. So that thing keeps moving. There's multiple things that are moving. It's like a rocking boat. So I hate to be the person that says I can't answer that, but there really is no definitive way for me to answer how long your waiting time is going to be. And tomorrow you could get that zero mismatch offer. So that's what I was saying earlier about trying to even imagine being in your shoes. I can't. All I can do is tell you that, you know, we work the best we can with how that rocking boat moves to see if we can, it's like trying to shoot an arrow at a target that's continually moving. It's really difficult to do or to say.
Okay. Right. How do you gauge the relative sickness of a transplant recipient of the patient?
Because that's going to be, I guess the best way to answer that is between the different departments. Okay. So you've got, and then we also have to define sickness, right? So nutrition wise, so there's going to be, when you're listed, there's a table of people that are at the table talking about whether or not it's a good idea to list that particular individual. What's their nutrition status? What's their financial status? Are they somebody that can follow a complex medical regimen? Or are they somebody that doesn't really listen to their doctor or their coordinator? What meds are they on? What's their current creatinine and function? How long have they been in dialysis? You know, what is their skin and wound care history? All those different things play in to the relative sickness of somebody. The list, you know, we have a pretty large list, and I know sometimes folks are not seen for a yearly. Maybe they're not seen for 2 years just because the list is so large. So we may not know, and not to disparage kidney folks, but if any recipient has ever tried to pull a fast one on me, it's been a kidney recipient. As far as, you know, hey, you have any wounds, you have any infections, you have any fevers, whatever the case may be. The only time where I've run into an issue is folks have said that they're perfectly fine and they just had a toe amputated a week before. And they show up and then we send them home, of course, because, you know, your body's already dealing with that. So be honest with your coordinator. Be honest when you get that phone call. If you are under the weather, let us know. If you haven't been feeling really good, let us know. Not just at the time of the offer, but what I had mentioned in one of the first slides. If you're sick or if you're feeling you got a cold, be in constant contact with your coordinator. Because if you're, for whatever reason, not feeling as good as you felt the week before, the year before, whatever the case, please let us know so that we can intervene if necessary to get you into fighting condition, let's say. Because that's really what we want. We're going to put you into the ring. Going in for transplant is going into the ring. So you need to be in the best shape you can, mentally, physically, emotionally. So I hope that helps.
All right. What if my caregiver is out of the country when I get the call? Tabitha, this is why we have a backup caregiver vetted. We require you identify 2 caregivers, the social work team does, when you come in for your evaluation. That's the purpose of having the backup caregiver. If your primary is unavailable, out of the country, sick, or any of those things, the backup should be the person that arrives for you and steps in to take over your primary care during that
If
time.
if there isn't a backup,
Then you can't be transplanted.
you're going to be skipped. And just so people know, vetting a backup can't happen in the time that we have when I make that call.
Yep. And this is why we educate, we meet with you guys. We try to do annual update visits to see if there's any changes in caregiver plans. It's very important that you continue to discuss with your loved ones their availability. We have had people that got skipped over for an offer because they did not have someone to come in with them to be their caregiver at the time of transplant. If there are any changes, you notify us immediately. Tommy mentioned that earlier. Insurance changes, caregiver plan changes. Let us know immediately because this affects your listing. And when it's time, they will turn you away if these things are not in place.
The ball really is on that part in your hands. And that's what you want. You want to be the director of your own care. right? You want to be in control of your own care as much as possible. And the best way to do that is to do the things that you're supposed to, and keep information flowing to us so that we can best serve you. If we don't know, then it's just like your lawyer, right? If you don't tell him everything, then he can't really represent you well. We're kind of the same. If you don't tell your coordinator and your doctor everything, then we can't really represent you well.
Okay. All right, I have a follow-up on that dual kidney pancreas question. Does the wait list decrease, the wait list time decrease if you're doing kidney pancreas? So, they sometimes say 5 to 7 for kidney alone. Is the wait list time decrease when you're doing the kidney pancreas? That-
Um, I really don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know what the average wait time for a KP is. Um, I want to say it's probably a little bit less. I think because there's not as many people on a KP list, right? We don't do as many pancreases throughout the country. There's not as many people that are listed for them. But with that being said, the caveat is you could, in that quote unquote, maybe shorter wait time, have 3 to 5 dry runs. If you live close to the hospital, if you're fortunate enough to live close to the hospital, then for kidney pancreas or a pancreas alone, we may tell you, okay, wait at home. We'll let you know if we like the pancreas when we see it. And then we'll tell you to come in. But if you live 4 hours away, 6 hours away, whatever the case may be, we're probably going to have you drive in because we don't have that time to wait for you to show up and do the workout because the pancreas needs to be put in much quicker than the kidney does. So that dry run is much more emotionally, financially demanding than somebody who actually lives close to the hospital. Does that make sense? Because one person's dry run is waiting at home, waiting for the phone call. Yes, the KP is good. And the other person actually has to get in their car with their caregiver, drive all the way to Mayo. And then if it's not good, then they have to go all the way back home and potentially do it again.
Right. That is all of the questions that were in the chat. Is there anyone else before we let Tommy go today? No.
Please keep your phones on.
Yes.
Please have at least one backup phone number. I would prefer 4, to be honest. I had somebody I called in. He didn't answer. Wife didn't answer. Brother didn't answer. Luckily, they had like a 20-something-year-old daughter who was just coming home from a club that answered the phone at like 2 o'clock in the morning and went in and woke her dad up. So please, I feel like Jerry Maguire, right? Help me help you. Give me give me phone numbers so that I can get you, please.
Right. And you can always update your portal with your contacts. Everyone should have access to the portal because I sent you a message to attend this group. So go in the portal, update your contacts. The social work number here is 904-956-3292. I had a few people ask for that number. Again, that's 904-956-3292. Right.
When they go into their portal and update their contacts, does that transfer over to Epic?
Yes, that's in the Epic. Yep.
Perfect.
It really does. I've had someone do it right there with me in the patient
And then
room
awesome.
because they had some changes and I walked them through it. So it's an easy fix to update. If you change your phone numbers, that happens a lot because I even have a time reaching patients sometimes. They change their cell and make sure you are doing that in your patient portal as well. All right.
Awesome.
Well, thank you all for attending today, and we want to do a big thank you to Tommy. This is always very informative. I'm always excited for this presentation. I always learn something new. So
I hope I get to wake you up and tell you I got a kidney for you.
all right, thank you all. You all have a great day, and we will see you all next month.
Peace.
All right. All right. Thank you.